give a warm welcome to the hosts of The Bride of Alternate Ending.
Hello, ghouls and goblins, and welcome back to Bride of Alternate Ending. It's the incredibly strange podcast from the network that is called Alternate Ending, and we are
You okay? Do you need help? Do you need me to bail you out?
No, I got it.
You sound like you're in a panic. Okay.
So Rob and we used to work for Rob and Carrie, and then they shot us into space, and they forced us to watch cheesy movies, the worst they can find. And
La la la.
Mm-hmm. And I have built a robot friend, and his name is Tim, and he's here right now. Hello, how are you doing today, Tim?
I thought you'd be the robot friend and I'd be the Joel, but I guess that's not how we're gonna play it.
Well, I feel more like a robot friend, but I was the narrator of this particular intro.
That's true. That's true. You were the one who was performing the Bride of Alternate Ending love song.
Yes, exactly. For those who are not caught up, we did announce this last episode, but we are doing a month of movies as seen on MST3K. This is a topic requested of us by the Oscar-level patron Gavin McDowell. For those who are deeply not in the know, MST3K is the show Mystery Science Theater 3000. In short, I mean, it's got like a space high concept, but it's about a guy and his robot friends watching bad movies and making fun of them while they play.
And roughly every 18 minutes, they stop watching the movie, they do a puppet skit, and then they go back into the movie.
Yeah, and the it is the funniest show you've ever seen with the worst interstitials you've ever seen.
That's a little hard on the interstitials, but probably not very.
The puppet skits are rough. I've never seen one that I've been bowled over by. I love the doors opening when they go back into the room.
I have a grand scale theory of when these skits are and are not tolerable in Mystery Science. I think that Joel's era, he actually cared about the skits, so more effort was put into making them at least cute, if not always funny.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike viewed them as an obligation, and there are almost no good Mike segments that are not also musical numbers.
Oh, that's good to know. See, because you have, just from what I can tell of just the way that we talk about the show, like I love MST3K. I did grow up with it, but I don't have the kind of, I haven't really like plumbed the depths of it in a way that I think that you have. I've seen definitely double-digit amount of episodes, but not like a considerable amount, I think.
I don't have the number at my fingertips. I would say that of the, I want to say 173, I think was the number of the original run of episodes before it got revived and then kind of revived again and then kind of revived a third time, and that's sort of where we are. Does it need a fourth revival or not? But of the original decade from 89 to 99, I think there's 173 episodes, and I have certainly seen cozily over 100 of those. My guess would be that I have probably seen around 115 episodes.
That is a hell of a lot. So I will bow to your knowledge of the kind of wider MST3K.
But I will, just in terms of the interstitials, I will repeat what I said. When there's a song and a dance, it is great, and when there is neither of those things, it is anywhere from wretched to watchable.
Yeah. As are many of their movies that they cover.
Indeed. I mean, that was a segue to talk about this particular movie right there, if we wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, ranging from wretched to watchable in the space of a single shot most of the time.
And in the context of whether or not full-scale musical numbers are being performed.
Oh my God. Okay. So yes, we are here today to talk about the who gets the honor of introducing the title.
I think you should get to say it first, because I'm just going to tell you right now, because you can't stop me from doing it. I'm only ever going to refer to it by its full title.
Oh, okay, great, of course.
For the remainder of this episode.
Okay, so yes, I will. I'm going to try to. I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to take the training wheels off. I'm closing my eyes, and I'm just going to try to say it from stem to stern or tip to tail. We are watching the 1964 Ray Dennis Steckler joint, The Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies, ! Question mark, which is a punctuation symbol that I've chosen to call an interrobang bang.
I like that. I also appreciate that you remembered the punctuation mark because I feel like that is a sort of optional choice and not everyone uses it.
Yes. Will you be choosing to use it in your
Well, I'm not entirely confident how to pronounce exclamation point, question mark. I know how to pronounce exclamation point, which is the punctuation at the end of the movie A Talking Cat, but I don't quite know how I want to approach it. So I'm gonna feel it out. When I say the name of this motion picture we're here to talk about today, I'll see if the Lord chooses to speak through me in that moment.
No, that's how I introduce the show every time. So I think it is in keeping with the tone of Bride of Alternate Ending. But yeah, I are you supposed to apply the punctuation to the way you say the entire title? Because that's a lot of runway to put that
I mean,
energy into.
presumably you at least apply it to the final word of the title. So it would be something like the incredibly strange creatures who stopped living and became mixed up zombies. But I think I put too much question mark on it, didn't I?
Yeah, you need more exclamation point.
More bang, less questioning.
Yeah, zombie.
The incredibly strange creatures who stopped living and became mixed up zombies.
Hmm.
But I don't think there's any question mark at all there.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll work on it.
Wait.
I'll be saying it. I'll be saying it a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
because I've decided that's going to be my bit,
Yeah. 1,000 hours
and
of
I've decided to
practice, and you'll
tell you
be
that's going to be
perfect.
my bit. So you just see it coming like a slow moving truck that you somehow can't get out of the way of, and it flattens you and you die.
No, look. There's nothing I love more than an.
And then you become an incredibly strange creature who stops living
I mean,
and becomes a mixed up zombie.
the dream. Um, but look, there's nothing I love more than a needlessly wordy joke. So it really works for me. But I wanna try it. I wanna see if I can let the Interrobang Bang work for me. The incredibly strange creatures who stopped living and became mixed up zombies.
I think you got closer than I got on any of my tries.
Okay, it is hard. I do not envy you.
We're like I said, I'm just gonna pray on it, and I'm gonna hope that when the time comes, he chooses to speak with me as his vessel. He being, of course, Ray Dennis Steckler, who I have decided is in fact my god now.
Okay, yes, I appreciate that. He is certainly the god of titling movies. Because I did not realize this until I was looking it up. Spoiler alert, during one of the incredibly boring sequences of this movie. But he also directed Rat Finka Boo Boo, which is one of the better titles that has ever been.
It's a pretty good title. He also directed a motion picture. I'm going to forget the order of the individuals in question if I don't look it up.
Bob
The
and Carolyn
Hollywood
Ted and
Strang
Alice.
Yes, the Hollywood Strangler meets the Skid Row Slasher, which I would have to say is a fairly good title as well.
It is. I mean, look, we all have. We all have our strengths and we all have our fatal flaws, and his fatal flaw is, in general, filmmaking. But that
That's
did
legitimate.
not stop him. So let's talk about
Also,
this. What?
also during his decade of pornography, he made a movie called The Mad Love Life of a Hot Vampire.
Honestly, it's good, but not as good as these other like exploitation titles.
That's fair. That's fair.
Um, I couldn't. I gotta get my hands on some of these porn movies. I gotta know.
There is a Blu-ray box set that was put out by Severin Films that has 20 of Steckler's features, and I think he has like 40 features. So it's not a complete Steckler box set, but it's a ton of them, including everyone anyone has ever heard of or seen.
Yeah,
And I am contemplating whether that is an amount of money that I can set on fire in a degree that is wrong, given that I know that I can't.
yeah. But no, I just like if he fails at being erotic to the degree that he fails at being horrifying, that is a concept I cannot wrap my head around.
I am anxious to see this man's pornography, which is a sentence that I say all the time, but never in public. So it's a special moment.
I'm so happy to be here with you. Um, okay, no, I was gonna do a whole tangent about Wes Craven's porn movie, but we simply do not have time. We have to talk about the incredible.
We have to talk
Yeah,
about the incredibly strange creatures who stopped living and became mixed up zombies.
we're getting there. I feel like I need a little more lift on the end. I feel like that's what I want to hear from you. Um, so what's the plot of this movie?
Well, you see, There are not incredibly strange creatures who don't stop living and they do not become mixed up zombies, as you would guess.
Yeah, certainly not the last two phrases
No, it's
there.
it's re
What?
it's remarkable given how many words are in the title that not one of them applies to the content of the film.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's kind of incredibly strange creatures towards the end, which is like the kind of acid face, melty face mask people.
And incredibly strange is probably the part that applies the most.
Yeah, or
Sure.
maybe just creatures.
Right. Well, like there's also incredibly strange workaday humans. So,
Yes. Speaking of, ooh, I'm really trying to lean on you for the plot because I have no idea even what they meant
so,
to express was happening in this movie.
so basically, there's this guy named Jerry who's played by Cash Flag, which is a very real name of a very real person. Cash Flag was born to Mr. and Mrs. Flag once upon a time. No, Cash Flag is, of course, the pseudonym of none other than Ray Dennis Steckler, the director, but not the writer of this film. He actually managed to find other human beings to write it for him. Um, but so there's this character named Jerry, who in later days I think would probably be the kind of person who posts to the anti-work subreddit, for example. He is committed to the belief that it is better to lay about and be lazy, but find some sort of way of fashioning this into a kind of ideological statement of why working for the man is bad and soul crushing. And so with his time, of which he apparently has plenty, and his money, which apparently he has enough to function on, although it's unclear where it comes from.
I mean, he does
He
have a roommate.
he does have a roommate. He does have a roommate, whose name I believe is Harold. Yes.
I'd believe it.
Uh, so Jerry and Harold and Jerry's girlfriend Angela decide one day to go visit the carnival. And in this carnival, there are many things. There is a burlesque tent, and we spend an awfully large amount of time in that burlesque tent, though there are no plot specific events that happen in it other than we get to watch ladies dancing, clothed ladies. I should point out this is a very chaste burlesque tent. But
It's
whilst
like kind
wandering
of like the
around,
Gypsy Rose Lee school of burlesque.
except Gypsy Rose Lee understood that you had to remove articles of clothing.
I mean, one of them does do the curtain
One of them
thing.
does. That's true. We do see the curtain thing, and one of them is just in general wearing not much. Like she doesn't remove anything during her dance, but she's barely dressed when the dance
Yeah, it's kind
starts.
of like a merkin bikini that she's wearing.
That's a good way of describing it. Yes. Um. So the three of them, in between visiting the burlesque tent, go to find the fortune teller, Estrella, and Estrella very haughtily informs them that doom is coming close. And Jerry finds this very annoying, so he decides to storm out. And for some reason, either this offended Estrella enough that she wants to get her revenge on Jerry, or perhaps she always was planning on doing this, and this was the doom she was sort of hinting at. She kidnaps and hypnotizes. I guess she doesn't kidnap. She lures and hypnotizes Jerry, uh, and he murders people whilst hypnotized,
Mm-hmm. I got that.
as if
Yeah.
almost as though he was an incredibly strange creature who continued to live and did become mixed up. So mixed up also applies to the plot.
He did become
Um,
mixed up. He did have to go have a think down at Angel's Flight about the whole
y-
situation.
yes, yes, indeed. So he is mixed up, and she is incredibly strange. And
I guess. I mean,
there
it
is a creature in the form of Estrella's guy, Ortega,
Ortega, yeah. Which
Ortega,
oh, another
who
one of the
is
ways that
an interesting gent.
yeah, this is another one of the ways that this movie fails to distinguish between Romani and Mexican cultures, and also does very bad things to both of them.
Indeed. I choose to mentally cope with this, if nothing else, by just assuming that there are in fact no Romani in the film, that they are all Mexican, but she is calling herself a gypsy for the purposes of branding.
That makes sense, but she's definitely. I mean, this might have just been the color grading, but she's definitely giving a white woman in brown face.
Well, that doesn't mean she can't. I mean, yes, that doesn't mean she can't be Mexican
Yeah,
though.
or just canonically, whatever. Who knows? It's a big ol' stew mess. But anyway, yeah. So
Yes,
he's killing people. Um, Ortega's weird. Um, and then there are some monsters that she seems to
towards the end,
be hiding in her closet, right?
she we learned this quite early on actually that she has some sort of bin of creatures who are potentially mixed up zombies. I don't think we have evidence that they are not undead,
We
so we can go with
we do
that.
see her dropping acid on a guy's face, and maybe he then died and stopped
That's
living
true.
and became a mixed
And
up
you
zombie.
would stop living if acid was dropped onto you in the wrong place. That's very
I
true.
probably would.
Uh, but it appears that Estrella is in general trying to like get control of the carnival, maybe because she does have him kill some of the other people involved,
I guess mostly just like the dancing ladies, right?
mostly just the dancing ladies. Um, and uh, and then at the end, the incredibly strange creatures who are possibly not living zombies, but are probably mixed up regardless. They escape, and lots of people die. The end.
But before the end, there is 10 minutes of kind of running around on the beach.
There's definitely some running around at the beach. The incredibly strange creature version of Jerry at this point, who I think the status of his livingness is unclear.
I guess you could say that.
I mean, he could have stopped living and became a mixed up zombie, or he could just be alive and is a mixed up human.
Yeah. Does
Is what
does
I'm
does
saying.
he have the makeup that makes him look like there's oatmeal on his face? Has that happened?
Well, he's had acid thrown on his face
Oh yeah.
at that point.
So I by the last 20 minutes of this movie, I went into a trance and couldn't process anything that was any of the imagery that was circling through my corneas.
So I will say I probably benefit at least a little bit. Was this the first time you had seen the incredibly strange creatures who stopped living and became mixed up zombies?
Ooh, that was good. Yes, it was the first time, and I've not seen the MST3K episode.
Because it is the first time I've seen the movie as a movie, about which I do have thoughts. But I've seen the episode several times.
Is it a good episode?
It's a pretty good episode.
Okay, I do want to check that out. And I know,
It
yeah.
it has some jokes that, as they say, haven't aged well.
I mean,
But
that is par for the course. But so I know MST3K, they do cut down the movies somewhat to fit broadcast
yes,
time standards. But I wonder what parts they didn't cut out of this movie.
uh, I will not swear that every musical number made it into the episode because I don't remember there being that many musical numbers.
There's a hell of a lot of musical numbers.
The Wikipedia page indicates that some violence was cut, although I don't remember that.
Fair enough.
Um, so my instinct is to say that at least one full musical number was cut.
As is their right. I don't think you're losing really anything.
There's only a ton of ways that you can make the same jokes about why is there a musical number in this zombie movie? Why are the musical numbers also lifelessly staged? Like at a certain point, for the purpose of the comedy, they have to not keep doing the same routine over and over
Yeah,
again.
exactly. That's what I was thinking because I was just like, I just can't imagine not being bored by having to riff this at some point. But yes. Anyway, oh my god, I just okay. Should we talk about the musical numbers? Let's continue.
I feel like we are done talking about the movie if we elect not to talk about the musical
Oh no no
numbers.
no
They
no.
represent half of its running
Great
time.
point. They do, but like you said, they almost never intersect with the plot. Some of them are kind of fine. Oh, well, see, that's the thing. That's sorry. I'm mixed up. I'm incredibly strange and mixed up. There's a lot of like kind of vague. Like you said, there's the burlesque stuff, but then there's that lady who's doing that kind of dance with the guy where she's just kind of pressing herself against him, and they're both facing the same direction, and it's like
Hmm.
if Dirty Dancing was if you watched it in like point 0.5 speed, and they also were just warming up.
Mm.
Um, they're also dancing to a song that sounds like someone is gargling a cover of "I Could Have Danced All Night" from My Fair Lady.
It's a really good description.
Thank you. It's and then I don't know, like some of the songs are actually kind of fine. Like if I was at a restaurant and this was the live music, I'd be like, "Oh, okay." I'm not going to pay that much attention, but they're okay.
Yeah, I don't really object to the music per se. Like it's none of it. I'm not going to rush out and buy the Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living Became Mixed Up Zombies soundtrack, which I'm sure such a thing exists because this is a bit of a cult object
I'm
now.
sure Mondo has
Uh,
a vinyl record of it.
and in fact, now that I say that, if I end up investing in that Severin box set that is calling me like a siren in the night, I think there's at least a possibility that some of the 15 discs in that set are dedicated to music.
Excellent.
So, so I might be lying. I might actually literally buy the soundtrack to the Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living Became Mixed Up Zombies. But the songs are not grisly. They're not objectionable. They're just very bland and flavorless and have no personality whatsoever in the lyric writing or really in the melody, but they, as you say, they're good background music for something else. Your thought was if you were having dinner at a restaurant. Mine would be more I'm at a department store in a failing mall and I'm buying some slacks and along comes Shook Out of Shape, for example.
Yeah, oh my god. Again, another just absently performed dance number, indifferently choreographed. Lots of hip shimmies, and that's the end of the list.
Pretty much. I think that there is like an effort, I think, at like doing choreography here. I think there's a credited choreographer, but it still feels like this is basically a guy going to the burlesque dancers that he knows and being like, "Hey guys, do a number." And so the burlesque dancers do the only bumping and grinding they know that doesn't specifically involve taking off their clothes. And then he's like, "Okay, great, one down, nine to go. Let's do another." And the burlesque dancers are suddenly caught in a panic because that's the only thing they knew how to do. And clearly the director expects them to do eight different things.
That sounds
And
exactly
so
right.
what we see is the sort of like, okay, girls, what if we do this with our arms? And everyone's like, and they just kind of commit to it and hope for the best.
No, that sounds right. And I might have. I think I read this. I think I read all the musical numbers were filmed on the same day. Um,
I encountered the same fact.
okay, so that does sound entirely likely. Um, yeah. So you know what? They did their best. They tried. They got something that looks in some way like it was performed at a rinky-dink carnival.
Yes. No, I mean it captures the spirit of going to a seaside carnival in a part of California that you don't usually go to because all that's there is some sort of low rent seaside carnival. It captures that vibe beautifully.
It really does. And I gotta say, okay, so the corner of California, in particular that we are going to for the carnival, that was filmed at the Pike in Long Beach, which is where I lived for a decade. And I worked at the Pike for several years, it stopped being a seaside carnival in the late 1960s. But there is still they still try to honor that history. They have a Ferris wheel and the bridge across the pedestrian bridge where you can cross the street to go over to the Hooters. It's kind of shaped like a roller coaster. But for me, it was really fascinating to get to see this place that I know so well back when it was more robust and interesting,
Sure.
and not gentrified, or whatever the version of gentrification that gets rid of a carnival is, or just modernized.
Urban renewal.
Yeah. But also, there is a part where they're running around on the beach frolicking, and the camera pans past my favorite building in Long Beach, which has this beautiful green roof. It is a building that is also seen in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. They do drive past it towards in the third act. Well, the fucking eighth, the final act of that movie. And that's around the same time. So, like, as someone who grew up here, getting to see just this kind of on the ground footage, and there's so much filler footage of just what the Pike looked like. It was like just seeing a documentary of this place that I know so well, and that was a really beautiful experience for me.
I mean, I obviously can't speak to the specifics of that. I think I've been through Long Beach once. I have certainly never stopped in Long Beach, but even without that, and that sounds like an extremely cool experience, like the degree to which this film functions, I assume inadvertently as just let's just kind of point the camera at this sprawling, interesting little niche world that's kind of too much in the mainstream to count as the underground, but it's also far too rinky dink and detached from anything people actually want to do to be anything else. Like, let's just kind of look at it and like let the camera soak it in. Um, which I gather is kind of Steckler's thing.
Hmm.
That like a lot of his movies, because I mean these we should probably pin this down because we haven't talked about it. This movie was made for like the change you find in your couch.
Oh, for sure.
This movie was made for $38,000, which went farther than now in 1964, but that is still like just not an amount of money you make a movie out of, especially a movie that has like 7 or 10 or however many full-on musical numbers this has, multiple characters wearing substantial amounts of makeup. Like 38,000 to make this movie is deranged. And I think part of what happens, and it happens in all eras of independent micro budget filmmaking, one of the things you can afford to shoot is just the place that you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of what actually I really loved, frankly, about this movie, especially because now that I've seen it in an HD restoration rather than the version on Mystery Science, which of course is a VHS recording of a VHS tape that's being like rear projected behind silhouettes, basically. Um, there's just some very lovely documentary is the wrong word for it because it's not a documentary, but it has the cadence of
It's
documentary
verite.
footage. Yes, it's like the thing that Steckler could afford to do was be on this pier, so he's there and he's filming it, and you're just kind of getting this like rich, colorful version of this weird little spot in the world. And I loved that, even though I had no like personal connection to the location. So I can only imagine how much more so I would feel if I actually had seen it in the modern day.
Yeah,
The ghost of what it was.
it's really wild. Like the second we see the exterior of what's the girlfriend's house, I was like, that's in fucking Long Beach. That is a Long Beach ass house right there. And I was looking up the locations, and that's just what it is. But yeah, no, I totally agree. There are movies like this in the 80s, like in any time. Like in Silent Night, Deadly Night, looking at all the toys on the shelves in the toy store, like there
Yep.
is a very cool time capsule quality to this kind of thing. Um, including the Angel's Flight in Los Angeles, which is a landmark that more people would recognize than the Pike.
Mhm.
Angel's Flight looked like shit in the 60s. Like it looks like shit now because it's shut down. And it's not in a great part of LA. But there was a brief shining moment for Angel's Flight, and it was not in 1964. Let me tell you that. It's just a concrete hell jungle gym prison. I don't know what was going on.
And like it he has zero instincts as a storyteller. Like I think that's just very, very obvious from everything that happens with a character in this movie. And it's very obvious from the way that the story just keeps like forgetting what it is in order to make room for another 10-minute stretch of musical numbers.
And spitting up characters and then wiping them off the
And
board.
exactly, I do think Ray Dennis Steckler has an eye. Like I think when he takes the camera and sets it in front of these things, he makes them look distinctive and interesting. And I think that he needs to be pointing the camera at an interesting subject to make that happen. Like I think he got lucky that he's filming a part of the world that doesn't exist anymore, so it has a kind of, as you say, time capsule quality. But I do think he knows how to set up the camera, and that's not zero for a film like this.
Yeah, and there is some gusto going on in the horror story that is kind of being tacked on to this
Hmm.
kind of a greater LA County neorealism that's going on.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, like the thing that kind of leaps to my mind is when they go to an amusement park and they like put the camera on the fucking not tilt-a-whirl,
the
but
roller coaster?
like well, there's that too, but doesn't at one point the camera go on the spinny around thing?
Oh, yeah, probably.
I forget what it's even called. It's been ages since I've been to that kind of theme park. But like he puts the camera in places where you don't put cameras because you end up with this hideous, shaky motion, like makes you nauseous sort of footage. But they're very bold images. Like he's going for it.
Yeah, and there are moments like when his character is being hypnotized, there's this kind of way that the camera is kind of like pounding and zooming onto his eyes back and forth.
Hmm.
That's really cool. Um, there is, I mean, and obviously not all of it's very good. Like there's this very ambitious shot of a lady who just doesn't. She resolutely refuses to matter to the plot. She kind of
Hmm.
shows up and is kind of like investigating Madame Estrella, and kind of does she even die or does she just vanish?
I think she just vanishes.
Yeah, that sounds right. But the camera's kind of like uh spinning. It's doing this like kind of spiral spin while it's looking at her. And it's going upside down. It's like doing this kind of bizarre uh twirling motion, and then it just kind of gives up towards the end and just kind of shakily pans away like, whoa, that was a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it is not a good movie. Like I don't want my enthusiasm for the bravery of the imagery to suggest that it is a good movie. It is a catastrophe.
Yeah, no, it
But there's also a reason why I'm thinking about spending $140 to get 20 of this man's films on Blu-ray.
yeah, I mean, and when he's like really amping it up, there is a psychedelic quality to it
Hmm.
that I think is potent. Especially that weird nightmare where there's like these kind of like Japanese oni masks, and like he has this kabuki makeup on, and there's a bunch of dancing and he's like running around through it. That is a wild thing to witness.
It is. It is a very incredibly strange, for want of a better
Yeah.
phrase.
And then
Like it's
the movie stops living periodically.
then the movie starts living routinely every single time music plays.
Oh my
But
goodness.
yeah, I don't know. I find this to be just a captivating experience. It is both captivating because it is unbelievably terrible at some very basics of storytelling. Like, who are these people?
Oh yeah.
What do they do in their lives? What are their relationships to each other?
And speaking of, yeah, the girlfriend also ceases to matter to the plot almost instantly in a way that I wasn't expecting. But also, yeah, I want to know about these two roommates who are theoretically not gay, but seem to have been split from vampire lore. Like one of them has a Dracula accent, and Ray Dennis Deckler has a little bit of an Orlok face.
Hmm.
Um, not no, look, he's dead, so I can be mean to him. Um, he, it's his hair. His hair is the exact wrong look for him.
His hair is 30 years older than he is,
Yeah,
and it is a real pity.
it is a real pity, and also because there's a part where he's like having a nightmare and he's shirtless in bed, and I'm like, oh, you look like a handsome young man, and then he puts his clothes on again, and I was like, oh, what the fuck is happening to you?
Yes, why did you just age from 25 to 70 in the course of this shot?
Yeah. Um. But yeah, no, it's so discombobulating to experience.
Like, it's discombobulating because so much of it is just not remotely on the same page. So we have like let's just focus on the incredibly strange creatures part of the incredibly strange creatures who stopped living and became mixed up zombies. The evil gypsy woman's secret zombie army plot. You have so much that is not lining up. I mean, you have a Steckler is just a complete anti-presence on screen, and I assume he's playing the lead role because he was cheap,
Yeah.
right? Like he was the cheapest person that Steckler could possibly hire to play that part. Um,
Yeah, this doesn't seem like the kind of like Tommy Wiseau in The Room kind of lead role that you give yourself. It's not self-serving or vainglorious. It is just pragmatic.
I firmly believe that. So like he has absolutely zero screen presence. There's the roommate who is just speaking with such a pronounced Eastern European accent. And I mean, I get that, it's a melting pot, people coming from all over the world, but it feels in the context of a horror movie, like you said, just way too Dracula for it to just kind of pass by like we're not supposed to notice it. And and Brett O'Hara, who plays the fortune teller, is she's doing something. I don't even really know how to describe where she's at performance
Yeah,
wise.
it's not like a luscious campy villain role cuz like someone who could act could make a real meal out of that, but it's something.
It feels like a kindergartner throwing a tantrum in brownface.
Yeah, like it's not even at the level of the evil sorceress from Troll 2.
Right.
Cuz she's serving up something sizzling and weird in a very heady way. Um
So you have that. You have all those weird tonal
yeah, yeah.
mismatches in the acting. And then you have like the film's very game attempts to create a sort of sense of danger by focusing on the ways in which the carnival is like this weird off-putting space. And there's like these two specific
Oh,
cutaways that
yes.
just really, really launch up. I mean, I'm thinking of them specifically because I saw Mystery Science Theater, and Mystery Science Theater makes a huge fucking deal about these cutaways. But there's the clown,
Yes.
and then there's the chimpanzee doll that like says "Come buy your tickets" in this like very weirdly posh accent.
Those are terrifying.
The phrase "nightmare fuel," I believe, entered the lexicon because of a joke in Mystery Science Theater about the clown.
Oh my goodness. That's
I'm
history.
pretty sure. I think that's the first time I at least ever heard the phrase. Well, this is some good old fashioned nightmare fuel. Is the gag that accompanies the shot of that clown?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, those two cutaways. So there's only two moments that actually provoked some sort of feeling akin to horror in me. Those were one of them.
Hmm.
And the other one was just watching the final sequence where Jerry's being chased by a cop down the beach when he's still in mixed up zombie mode. And I just genuinely felt fear that Ray Dennis Steckler was going to hurt himself on the rocky beach. Like it feels genuinely dangerous in a way that is by accident, but does
Oh no, for
it is
sure. No, everything
provocative.
in this movie is by accident.
Yeah,
Like everything about this movie is by
like it
accident.
grew on the
So
underside of a rock.
so you have all of these weird just mismatches of camp and like attempting to do horror, but also just kind of loving the space and enjoying kind of soaking its visuals up. So it's already this weird mishmash. And then you say also musical numbers. And and the film is already broken, but when you make that choice, you just shatter the film into 1,000 crystalline shards.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it's ambitious. As a genre, kind of you're welding these genres together.
It
But
marketed itself as the first monster musical.
yes, I would object to categorizing this movie in any way, just as an act against God. um, but yes, I mean, would this be better if he had tried harder to make these songs like a proper musical, like having to do with the plot? They obviously would still be bad and completely bungled, but would it be more focused?
I feel like focused and better in the case of the incredibly strange creatures who stopped living and became mixed up zombies do not necessarily point at the same thing.
I think you're right. Because like,
Like making this film tighter does not make it, I think, a better experience to watch it.
yeah, I don't know. I just like because the 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 fun fair stuff feels less like a pointless interlude than the music stuff does, because it is at least capturing that sense of place. And the music is doing that, but it could be doing that for 30 seconds and not for 3 minutes, because it is just one thing that you're just sitting with, and they just sit like these big lumps of rock in the middle of the movie.
Oh, they sure do. But I also feel like that's part of what's rambunctious about it is he's like, I'm going to do this because I want my burlesque friends to to do their numbers in my movie. That's the feeling I do get. I feel like this is a movie where a bunch of people that he already knew are in his movie. Like that is so incredibly strongly the vibes I get from this film.
Oh, for sure. I mean, well, one of the another one of the things that I read when I was just looking up what's going on here is that like one of the people is supposedly like the mailman that delivered stuff to the studio where Ray Dennis Deckler was doing some of the interiors, and he was just like, "Come be a carnival barker," and the guy said, "Sure."
Yep. And like that's the vibe here. So like I like that he decided to kill his movie to put a fucking bullet in his movie's brain so he could like show off some musical numbers that he thought were fun. And I think it's a terrible decision, but I feel it's one of those things where I think you need to let the terrible decisions happen because that's where the magic is.
I do suppose you're right, but it's just I could have done with maybe 5 less of those.
I mean, do I want there to be all of the musical numbers in this film? Probably not. Do I want the same number of musical numbers to be shorter? I don't. I want the 3-minute musical numbers. I just want 4 of them
Yeah, no, I hear
rather
that, and
than 8.
they do have value as part of the the time capsule of it all. But it's just like I said, it just they cease to be interesting more long before they are halfway over. For
They
me,
do, although I think it rallies by having the last big musical number be maybe the closest to an actual like functioning song.
that is true. It does feel like it came out of something like someone was trying there.
Right.
Um,
Um, but no, basically my point is I feel that this movie is like Nashville. And that it's
mhm.
basically just let's let all of these people bounce off of each other, and sometimes they're going to be doing something for like 10 minutes. And is it interesting? No, but it's interesting because they're people and humanity is interesting and messy, just
Yeah,
like this movie.
absolutely. And this also has the feel of speaking to the time capsule element, which is basically all it is. But it's one of those things where it's like these people are wearing their own clothes and they have their own hair,
Mm.
and it does feel so authentic.
That's actually literally not true. The actress playing Angela is wearing a wig because she stepped into the role after the actress who was hired didn't show up. So he grabbed one of the chorus girls and said, "You're the lead now." But they'd already filmed the musical
Oh
numbers.
wow,
So in order to avoid having her be recognizable, they put her in a beehive.
got it. It is. I mean, that beehive. That I'm so glad to hear that's a wig because it outacts her, and it is like a feathered coconut. It is brutal. It
It's pretty
is
fantastic.
that the actor that he would later get married to? Because one of the
No, he was at the time married to the actor who plays the couple that we see dancing first, who
oh
die. She was his wife at the
oh
time,
okay,
and continued acting in his movies even after they divorced
yeah, oh that's nice.
because he only knew so many people,
Well,
apparently.
yeah. Okay, good to know. But yeah, no, that everyone else's hair feels pretty authentic, and also
Right.
the like the Tommy Wiseau Count Dracula roommate. He's got some very James Dean hair that like actually looks pretty nice.
He is so, I think, self-evidently somebody who came to Los Angeles because he wanted to make it as an actor, and he's like, I will make it as an actor by wearing my hair in this certain way. But between his talent and his accent, it didn't pan out.
Mm-hmm.
But here comes Ray Dennis Steckler to the rescue.
Ta-da! He does seem like, and look, I mean, I knowing absolutely nothing about his personal life, he does from his presence behind the camera and on camera, which again is pretty wooden, but he does seem like he's probably a fun guy. Like,
He seems like the kind of person who was willing to put his life in jeopardy because every penny he was able to scrounge up, he sank into this film. And that's sweet to me. This
yeah.
isn't Tommy Wiseau having like billions of dollars to just set on fire. This is Ray Dennis Steckler like wanting really bad to make this insane zombie musical.
Yeah, there is a blood, sweat, and tears quality to it. Like
Yeah.
he's taking a piece of his essence and it doesn't make any sense, and his essence is pretty fucked
No,
up, but it he took it out
exactly.
and he gave it to us.
Exactly. So I don't know. I found this to be just a whirlwind of an experience. Is it a good whirlwind? I frankly don't think so, but I was amazed at how much I enjoyed watching this Sans Mystery Science Theater. To a degree, like it's always a nuts film, it has to be, but like I don't think I appreciated just how much like vigor is in this movie when I was watching it on Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what Mystery Science Theater adds to it. Like, because I'll be doing the reverse of what you're doing.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, no, it is certainly unique. And that is a quality that I do value and prize. I don't know that this is a movie I would ever revisit raw. But I am glad that I had the opportunity of seeing it, and before I got to see people making fun of it, like just see it in its whole earnest self.
I will definitely say, like, some of the moments felt tinted to me by the show in a way that I regret that they had. But
No, that is good to know. So I got to live this pure existence with what's this movie called, Tim?
this movie's called The Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living and Became Mixed Up Zombies.
Did they now?
I didn't
That
land it.
was like a triple question mark I was hearing in that one.
Yeah, I think I just replaced the bangs with question marks.
Anyway, is there anything else to talk about in this slim will o' the wisp of a movie?
I think it is worth pointing out that I believe it held the record at the time it was released for, believe it or not, the longest title of any film.
Oh, I do believe it. It is a title that fucks with the coding of Letterboxd, so it doesn't display in my diary properly. um, but yeah, I think if anyone beat this title, it was because they were trying, and Ray Dennis Steckler was not trying. I don't think.
It's hard to say. I mean, I do know that the original title was a riff on Doctor Strangelove, and the Columbia people sued. So they changed the title because they couldn't afford a lawsuit.
No, they really couldn't. They couldn't afford a suit.
They couldn't afford an extra question mark to balance out those two exclamation points.
No, they really couldn't. Uh, I mean, you know, this was nice. Um, what a bad movie.
It is one of the worst movies. And yet somehow you gave it a star and a half, and I gave it a star. Like neither one of us gave it the lowest possible ranking. It's just too fucking weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just it's got texture to it. Because the worst movies are just all boring all the time,
Mm.
and they're just bland and offer you nothing. And this, it I don't know. It was kind of just zapping you with the cattle prod a couple times, just to.
It's a pretty it comes from a broken place, and that is my favorite kind of art.
Mhm. It's lovely, and I do love I do love kitsch. And the extreme '60s-ness of this did really kind of drive a lot
Oh
for me.
yes. Oh yes.
But I have run out of things to say about this movie. If
I have also run out of things to say about the incredibly strange creatures who stopped living and became mixed up zombies.
Ooh, okay. I think we're there. I think we should end on that note. But yes, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We do have one more MST3K ripped from the headlines episode coming to you. Next time, we will be talking about the Screaming Skull. No punctuation. Ah. Um. Yeah, I've never seen it. Have you seen that episode of MST3K?
I have seen that episode. Not one of my favorite episodes, although the film, which is extremely short, thankfully, is preceded on the show by the, I believe, only animated cartoon they ever riffed on
Ooh,
Mystery Science Theater. They riffed an episode of a cartoon of Gumby and Pokey.
fascinating. But yeah, so no, I can't wait for that. Look, I'm someone I like I said, I'm a bit of an MST3K dabbler. Like obviously, I've seen Monos: The Hands of Fate. I've seen like the big episodes, but it's exciting to see the things that were going to be built upon, and I plan on watching these episodes at some point. I'm not going to make a promise as to a date
I was
because
going to say, I feel like you probably are a little bit Ray Dennis Stecklered out in this exact instant.
yes, I am, and also it's a busy month for me. But
Fair
I'm
enough.
very curious to kind of get on those. But anyway, until the Screaming Skull, until next time. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Ah!
Ah!
That's the sound of two skulls screaming, but ones that still have the flesh on until they stop living and become mixed up zombies. Hmm?
I like it. You just went for it, and you were fearless, just like Ray Dennis Steckler is
Thank
fearless.
you. And broken. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye bye.